So welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for July 2nd, 2025. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the issue that was created in the repository, which is 1759. Before we jump into that, are there any announcements people would like to share?
I want to remind everybody that there are tickets available for JSConf US. And if you are one of the Node.js maintainers, there is a discount available. So if you need that, please reach out to me, Robin, or just ask in the channel and somebody will provide you the discount code.
Yeah, and also there is and I thought I tagged it with, but maybe discussions don't show up. There is an issue in the collaborator repo to asking a survey with a link to a survey, just asking who's going to be at the collaborator summit so that we can get some numbers. Roy and myself put that together, but it would be good to know who's coming in terms of planning. That minutes.
Who has access to the survey, just in case
Yeah.
we need someone else other than you?
Yeah, I think Roy has access, right? So he should be able to. Maybe Roy, you can double check. You can collect the answers.
Right, I will.
Because yeah, at this point, it would be good if you took that over.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, the regular recommendation to nominate people for the contributor spotlight. Hopefully that'll get started again soon. CPC and board meeting updates. Matteo, anything you want to share from? I think the board meeting was last week, right?
There was the meeting was last week. There is nothing important to share. I think the core of the bulk of the current things that we are working on at the board is on the budget for next year, and this year, and so on and so forth. So you're all aware. Robin came last week to do a long presentation on the budget. So I think that is the main focus. As well as JSConf updates. Please, if you plan to come and you don't have got a ticket, please get a ticket. Okay, don't buy it last minute, please. Okay, so that we can do a good job at it. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to the next issue, which is and doc improve transparency and inclusivity of the TSC meetings. I think Joy, you might have opened that one. Do you want to lead the discussion?
There's an alternative protocol opened by James. I'm able to just go with that instead if people are more comfortable with the wording in there. I left some comments. I think I don't have a strong opinion about which one to land as long as something along the lines is landed.
Okay.
I guess for the meeting, maybe just go back to GitHub to wordsmith it.
Okay, so basically still just leave it as discussion continuing in GitHub. So we'll just skip for this week. Okay, the next one is remove symbol dispose integration in set timeout and set interval. Let's open that one up. I know we've discussed this in the past meetings. See, James, you had some comments. I don't know if you want to comment on those.
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to the fact that there are existing polyfills in the ecosystem that folks are using, even though we hadn't officially enabled using in the runtime. Like there's TypeScript, polyfills, and etc. If there's a possibility that these are already used in ecosystem, we don't know. We don't know if they are or not. So just to be on the safe side, we probably need to run these through a deprecation cycle. And, all the usual caveats about, using things that are experimental language features and adopting them too early, it kind of gets us in this situation. So that's it.
Anybody else have any comments or? I guess in the issue, I don't see too many members of the Node project advocating for removing them without that deprecation cycle, so that may be the path.
I think we can all acknowledge it's unfortunate that we have to go down that path, but it is what it is.
So would it make sense that we say, like, the consensus from those who was here is that it should go through a deprecation cycle if it's going to be removed, and then take it off the agenda?
Sounds good to me.
Super unfortunate, please mention.
And
We might want to consider for long term adding those things in the timer stuff that's being returned by node timers. Okay.
okay, I'm just typing some notes.
Like if the same things are getting from node timers, they can keep having that. Okay, it's just for the globals that they should not have that. So that can also be a viable way to get this done. So we just remove it from the global objects.
Eventually, it would be nice if we can find some path to aligning with web platform without breaking the world. I mean, it's damn near impossible, but
It's I would call it damn near impossible. So
Okay, so let's move on then. Okay, the next one is update to NPM 11 in node 22. I'm just looking, I know we've touched on it a couple times. I don't think, do we need a specific, agreement, or I haven't heard anybody who's been arguing against that, right? I know, Matteo, you opened the issue. Some discussion of better understanding the breaking changes, but I don't know if anybody has anything we should discuss this week.
To be honest, we are not coming into an agreement. So either somebody wants to put it to votes, or I think we can just drop it from the agenda.
Okay.
From my point.
I'm slightly not really following what where the discussion is going. Can you is it the right place to ask for
there was
information about what's the options? What are the options?
In one of the last ESC meeting, I think Raphael showed some objections to this, if I recall correctly. and he recommended to wait.
Yeah, my point was to land that I need to watch the recording, but I believe it was to wait a couple weeks on 24, and then we land that on 22 if needed. But I need to recall.
Yeah, I think your suggestion might even have been, if I remember, like to do it as part of the security release or something.
Yeah, if needed, but I was investigating the main match issue, but it doesn't affect Node.js, and it's also one of the npm dependencies that was already opened to the main. So it shouldn't be the issue that we are taking into consideration to upgrade to Node.js 22.
Also, I think there's an open PR to update the version, and like there's a new V10 version that npm has released. I don't know if that changes anything.
I guess at this point, is it back to GitHub to try and get agreement, or, and Mateo, you're saying maybe we can just take it off the agenda till that happens?
Just to clarify, I'm not strongly opposed to land it on 22, so don't consider my objection as a strong objection that requires a vote. If people believe that that's the best option, I would not be strong about it.
I think the discussion was more around, timing, about like how soon we would land it if we agree to land it, and how to land it. So like, we possibly land it in security release or something, and preferably before. Well, actually, no. Just yeah. Timing wise, I think there was a general reluctance, so reluctant exception that it's probably better in the long term to do it. But yeah, it was just a case of then, when and how. But yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, I think one side of it is like the potential security side of it, because as Anton pointed out, there is an npm 10 update, which is mainly to update the dependencies of npm, but I don't think I don't know, because I don't really know what the issue that Matteo was referencing when he opened this issue, some CLI bug or something. I don't know if that has been patched, or it probably hasn't been patched in the 10 update. So that issue may still persist. But if the other issue about like security warnings from scanners or potential future security problems in npm, that one probably does warrant, at some point going to npm 11 in node 22. But like I said, if it's a security thing, it's probably best then done as a security update. But if it's a bug fixing feature enhancement thing, then it's slightly more woolly then in terms of the whether we decide to go or not.
So any suggestions on the next proposals for the next step on this one? I see Jerisha has his hand up. Go ahead.
Just trying to
Yeah,
say
I
I'm
thought-
on in 9
sorry.
minutes. So probably need to talk about the blue skies thing, because that's I added that to Tuesday agenda.
Okay, so just Jerisha, do you have something quick on the the update for NPM before we move to the other one?
Yeah, I mean, if I recollect from the last discussion, the current issues are not major, or at least there are some mitigation path, but the wider issue seems to be that the NPM's release cycles or release policies do not align with the Node.js LTS policies. The breaking changes that get introduced in the NPM often seep into the LTS versions of Node. So how do we make sure that breaking changes are not getting into the LTS versions? So I think that's the larger question that we need to address in the long run.
Okay, I don't think we're going to solve that today. So I think I'll leave this one on the agenda, and based on Joy's request, let's move on to, which was it, the one you wanted to discuss? 128, or was there a different one?
140 of Blue Sky. Well, it's a discussion, not an issue. I pasted the link to the chat. I guess not much to say other than we have some results. And I think so far the results shows that most of the content have some, people generally view that favorably or don't mind seeing them. Some of the accounts that have, more people saying that they want to see less of, or I'll paste the links to the chat. Request for corporate support from individual contributors, as well as meeting recordings. I think I left some comments about how to make the when meeting recording posts more palatable in the pull request. So if people have opinions, please chime in. Other than that, I not sure what else I can bring up.
Given that most of these only have about 20 responses, I really struggle using them as any kind of basis. That's really, I mean, that's not even representative of the project, let alone the community around it. So, I mean, I really struggle to draw any actual inferences from any of this.
Yeah, I agree. The responses are not a lot. I guess that's, for example, if you look at the number of responses from Twitter when we have next-gen survey and compare the ratio, it's probably kind of expected to be a lower ratio considering we only have like 9,000 followers on Blue Sky. But I think even if we just like pose a request for comments on Blue Sky and then people kind of just comment on Blue Sky with something constructive, I think we'll probably also take that seriously, even if it's just like one people responding to a post. So I guess that's still some kind of useful data point that we can use to improve our content, not necessarily kind of like just removing them, but just think of how we can make them more palatable, or so that there will be fewer people feeling that they want to see less of this.
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, even with 9,000 followers, this is like what, like 2.5% of even those followers. It's just not representative. So, I mean, I don't know if there's a better approach we can take to this, possibly engaging the foundation to do a survey with a broader scope, actually engage somebody to look at our social media channels as a whole, and do a broader scope might be a lot more effective, but I don't know. Marco has his hand up. Sorry if I
Yeah. We could do a survey as next-gen team. That's what we have done that in the past. So we like we can do it for this kind of purpose too. So maybe we can like if we agree to have a survey, we can move the discussion to the next time team and handle it there.
Some sense, because you know, the last survey did get 4,000 respondents, so doing something in a similar approach might make sense. Joe, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think the Blue Sky survey was kind of meant to be an experiment because Blue Sky, we all know that Blue Sky is kind of different from Twitter. Um, so I agree that for a larger kind of scale of trying to set some kind of guidelines or kind of goals of what we want to achieve with social media, it would be better to have some kind of larger scale survey. I think I also mentioned in a different issue, it would be useful to have like larger scale survey, maybe not just on social media, but also on what people want to see from blogs and stuff, so that we have kind of more guided goals instead of just us thinking about what we can come up with.
Yeah, that would make sense to make it a broader sort of content survey on what kind of content people are looking for, and you can ask in the different areas.
Okay, I think I gotta go. Bye.
Okay. So maybe Marco, it sounds like almost you were interested in volunteering to have the next 10 team take a look at that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do that.
Okay, that sounds good. So, okay, let's go back to the agenda then. Um, so the next one is dedicated partner sponsor page. I don't think we've had any movement on this for a while. Oh, wait a second. This is fairly new. So it was open 4 days ago. So I see a few plus ones to bring it to the CPC. I'm just looking. So yeah, Claudio added it to the TSC agenda. I see some comments. See, maybe Matteo, you're suggesting maybe not the CPC. Do you want to help Claudio with that maybe in terms of next steps?
Sorry, which issue? Sorry, I was looking at something
This
else.
is issue number 7909. Which is dedicated partner sponsors page, updates on the homepage.
This is 7909. No, I mean it's I don't think the CPC is the person to approve this. Like they're not, CPC is not the group that needs to approve any of this. This is something governed by all the partners and sponsors and so on and so forth are governed by the foundation staff, and therefore it's the foundation staff that needs to do this. Like it's essentially, it's not the person that have the data.
Yeah, I guess, if Claudio's looking for guidance, it's sort of.
Like, I think we can do it. If we want to do it, we can do it. Okay. Yeah. but it's something that needs to be driven by the foundation and stuff. Like simply because they have the logos, they have the information, they have the data. The source of truth for that is them. Okay, is rubbing in and all the rest of the stuff. Okay, so I don't think it's anything to do with the CPC.
So in terms of next steps then, just a suggestion that he works with
Robin
on that?
and yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay, so I commented on that, commented on issue, and I guess I'll remove the TSC agenda tag. Okay, the next one is the dedicated EOL page, number 7906.
I think this and the next couple of things on the agenda are all linked to the ESP program and how that's being presented on the website.
Yep.
Other than that, I'm not actually sure where it stands at the moment in terms of the status.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure there's any decisions for us to make here as much as just have the website team keep working at the foundation marketing team and come to a consensus on what they need, what is needed.
I think last time we'd agreed that in the discussion that the PR could land to revert the, like, basically the one which was going to update it to point to Mateo's blog post.
Yeah.
Has that landed?
Let's verify.
It did not.
Does changing that link actually change the fact that the ad blockers are blocking it? If not, it does? Okay.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's linked. It's the direct link to that. Now, I presume that they will also remove the ad blockers would also remove the links to Hero Devs from the blog at some point. So I have no faith in that. Okay, like if unfortunately
we can't do anything about that.
we get like, to be honest, it's a fact of life. If it's a fact of life. So I have no. Essentially, that's me.
Just looking at node.js.org. Right, okay, so I don't think the update there should be a PR. Let me find the PR.
Pasted it in the chat.
Okay. Like, I don't believe there were any objections through email, so let's see. .com, what's that? So I guess like this should be able to, I should just comment, this can land. Do that. I'm gonna remove my block. So I think that is our next step. So we've kind of outlined, really, you're right, Richard, all those ones we've outlined the agreements. So I'm just gonna copy that into the minutes. Okay, so I don't think we necessarily need to discuss any of the others, which are like the dedicated EOL page. Move the homepage security link to the banner. Unless that's a different one, 7899. Okay, so I think we should just end up closing most of those other ones, or at least commenting like what was agreed, and then move on.
I
The
have pinged
oh.
Robin and Kylie on that. So
Okay, in terms of
we
the other
should
issues,
coordinate with
or
them on the website and those things.
okay. The next one is then add blog post publishing guidelines. This is 7860. I think Mateo, you opened that one.
Sorry, I lost the number.
Here, I'll post the link to it. Chat.
It's I think I don't think we should discuss this today.
Okay.
I've received enough comments. We can drop it from the agenda so far. I need to address a few things. And thank you, Joey, for all the comments. It's on my to-do list.
Okay. Shall I remove the agenda tag?
I have done it already. I'll put it back when I've done the work.
Okay. Okay. Okay, the next one is clarify TC responsibilities, limitations in the TC charter. I think, James, you added that one.
This is an alternative to the one that Joey and Darshan have been discussing. I had some issues with their original PR. I was asked to provide some concrete alternatives, so I opened this one. So this one should be considered in together with the other one.
Okay, which is the other one, 7860 or something else?
The next one in the agenda, 1754.
Okay, 1754. Okay.
Yeah. Rather than continuing to muddy up the conversation around the other proposed change, which I still disagree with, I separated my alternative proposal out.
Okay, so I guess at this point should we dive into the details of these, or is it like continue discussion in GitHub?
I'd prefer continued discussion in GitHub. I think it's premature for us to try to make a decision on these at this point. These are charter changes, so obviously whatever we decide has to get pushed up to the CPC for approval. Also, we need to make sure that this is what we want. if we even want changes to the charter, which I'm not personally, I'm not even convinced we should. But if we do, we need to be on the same page. So I think continue discussion through GitHub.
Yeah, I'm, anybody else, that sounds good to me. Anybody else have any concerns or objections to that? I'll just say like, let's skip and continue and GitHub on those two for at least until next week.
Okay, go ahead, Joey.
I also want to mention that my PR has received some more updates, so it would be nice if you could take a look once again. That's all.
Mateo, go ahead.
A good chunk of those things, okay, that have been mentioned, would require, I think they will require a change a charter change to the CPC charter, because those things are not mentioned in the CPC charter either, of things that can be delegated to projects, and that is essentially part of the current confusion. So, which in turn will need to will be up to the board to decide. Note, so we need to decide what to do, okay, what we want. We bounce it to the CPC. CPC probably will go back and say, well, we need to go some updates ourselves, okay, of things that can be delegated to projects. And from there up, it will be delegated to, it will be up to the board to ratify those. So it will be a long chain of reaction, okay? It might take a few months. Just mentioning, because, you know, it's a reality of the board meeting every month, okay? So. Now things might resolve quicker, okay? So it might be that at the end of this next for the next board meeting, everything is set up correctly already for the board to approve. But like the specific part that is not being mentioned is the communication channels are not being mentioned. Also, the specific exclusions and so on and so forth do not. They are things that are unrelated to Node. Okay, they should not. These should be clarified in the CPC charter, from my point of view. Yeah, it's literally things that they apply to all projects in the same way. They don't apply just to Node, so it's shared, and therefore should just be like. It's the point. The CPC chart, the Node charter should not mention exclusions, but should mention things that we have authority on. Yeah. Okay. So it's that's how things have been set up. Okay. Like there's exclusion things. It doesn't really. I don't think it would work. But this is my interpretation, and consider it as an advice and not a proper feedback. Like that is the feedback I would go. I would present in the later on discussions if those happens.
I would and I would just clarify, you know, from my point of view, I would actually prefer to see no charter change, because I don't think one is actually needed here. There were charter change put forward that I disagreed with the language, and so I put together an alternative that if we are going to make a charter change, then I think it's the direction it should go. But I think a perfectly valid option here is for the TSC to say, we're not going to change the charter at all. And then we don't have to go down this route.
James, I think that a mention on the kind of communication that the Node.js project, the Node.js TSC is entitled of doing, I think it's necessary. Okay, this was not mentioned, was not part of the original charter. And I think adding some language related to that is important. Okay. Mm-hmm. and therefore, like, because so far it seems that the Node.js Pro, like, another topic that we might want to include is we don't mention our website in our charter.
Yeah.
Why we don't mention our website in our charter? Okay. Again, this is very important things that are not being mentioned. Whenever if we touch this, it's probably going to mention it, and to mention also the website, okay, and the blog and whatever we want to consider.
Yeah, I think there's just been a fair amount of confusion and disagreement over what is or is not within the TSC's remit, and what the project's remit. So absolutely clarity on those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Is good. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to go into a charter change. If it does, it does. But I personally, I would rather not go down that particular route if it can be clarified and we can get on the same page without it. I think it's better for everyone. But kind of the way that some of the conversation's been going, I'm not seeing people see it eye to eye, and so charter may be the only possibility.
Yeah, I'm not like, from my perspective, I don't know that like something needs to be delegated to the project in some of these areas. It's just obvious that the project should have, if it wants to communicate with its larger audience, it should be able to do that. But whichever way we do it, reaching clarity on what the common understanding is would be good.
Yeah, I think we just need to be careful about assuming what is obvious to everyone. Like, it might be obvious to us individually, but it might not be obvious to everyone, and we may not have the same point of view on what is or is not appropriate communication.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think we have two views of what's obvious. So like, that's where, like, I don't know, like you're saying, it may not be a charter thing, but like having it documented somewhere will certainly help, because obviously there's been different views.
Mhm.
I mean, it has been documented in different places, but even that hasn't been enough to have people on the same wavelength. But basically on this, it's back to GitHub, right? Like, back to GitHub for the discussion on these two PRs, and then see where it goes. With Matteo, you were commenting, like, depending on if we do want to update the charter to include some things, that may take some time.
And we should, not just do this in a vacuum, like engaging the foundation, engaging the CPC members. Robin is weighed in on the pull request I opened. Actively engaging some of the CPC members while we're going through this might help with the process, so we don't go through a bunch of effort, propose a change, and throw it over the wall to CPC only to wait for months to find out, what that is. Just, it's good to do this stuff in partnership with the foundation rather than an isolation of.
Okay, so back to GitHub. The last issue on the agenda is, let's talk about the CI situation, number 1614. I don't know if there's anything to talk about. Anybody have anything to talk about on that one this week?
No, so there was an action to take it down the agenda and identify a champion who can drive the CI situation to stability and be empowered to take whatever action to improve the overall scenario. We send out a mail to the TSC to see if anybody is interested. More than a week has been passed. I don't see any response on that.
I think that's kind of been our challenge, is we don't have somebody who's really got time or commitment to try and push it forward.
Yeah. We can wait for some more time.
Okay.
If somebody comes up. Until then, we can retain this in the agenda.
Okay. I'll leave it on there. And I think we already talked about Blue Sky, so we could go take, we have a few minutes. We could go take a quick look at strategic initiatives. Antoine, anything on core promises worth mentioning?
No, nothing this week.
Should we even consider that a strategic initiative anymore? I mean, that's been years and it's just a thing now, right?
Yeah, the child process still doesn't have a promise API, but yeah, maybe it's not gonna happen. There have been attempts, but yeah, no.
Yeah.
I think successful.
I mean, when we made that a strategic initiative, it was still controversial whether we would do this at all. And I think we've all moved beyond that point that yes, promise APIs make sense. We enable them where they make sense, move on. So I would propose that we just take that one off as a strategic initiative.
Okay, I'll open a PR.
Okay, on to James. Anything on Quick?
I wish. We're waiting on OpenSSL 3.5. And I know Richard and Targos, you know, y'all been making a valiant effort of trying to get this update in and stuff. I did find out yesterday that I guess we are building statically or dynamically against 3.5. So with the shared library, so that may be enough to for me to start making progress again. But I kind of, you know, would prefer just in case something comes up and we just can't do this. I don't want to go through a bunch of effort to do that and have something come up and we just can't land 3.5 for any length of time. So, Richard.
Yeah, it is something I was working on, and then stuff related to my employment change.
Yeah.
It's distracted me for a bit, and I am planning to get back to it. But I mean, it still might take a couple of days or weeks for this to settle down. But I know what needs to be done, and it's all to do with just the way we have translated OpenSSL's build system into our bespoke GYP system. So we know through CI testing that we can dynamically link to OpenSSL 3.5, and everything appears to work. The tests will pass that we have that we are running in that configuration. So there shouldn't be anything fundamentally broken in 3.5 that would prevent us landing it in Node. The challenges at the moment are just getting the right files and the right GYP files so that when we rerun the configuration. So when you build OpenSSL outside of Node, part of the build generates a whole bunch of files, and then those generated files are used to build OpenSSL. But we pre-generate those for Node. So if you're actually going to look in deps OpenSSL, there's a deps OpenSSL config directory, and the upgrade process generates everything in deps OpenSSL config on a per platform basis. And yeah, I found that seems to be very manual in terms of, you know, OpenSSL add a few files in a version that we have to sort of go and find out where we need to add those files. I'm sure there's a better way, but part of this was trying to decipher what we did when we first went to OpenSSL 3.0, because we've not got 3.1 or 3.2 or 3.3 or 3.4 in Node. So this is jumping straight from 3.0 to 3.5. And I thought I was done about a month and a half ago, but it turned out that there is an issue with generating the config on GitHub Actions, because GitHub Actions runs on Ubuntu 24, and that uses a version of GNU Assembler that's much newer than on like the RHEL 8 build bots that we use to build releases. So you end up with assembler that cannot compile on older Linuxes, which is a fixable problem, but it just, you know, it's just time to put that in and run that through. And then the other problem was Windows. It's always Windows where there's more files in Windows that I need to find where they need to go and put them into the right places. But yeah, the fact that we can build it as a shared library, I suppose we haven't tested that on Windows, but yeah, on like the the Linuxes, the Unixes, we know it works as a dynamic library. So at some fundamental level, we're not expecting too many surprises with 3.5. We already patched some tests that failed because of usual things like, key size, minimum key sizes have now changed a little bit, and default security levels, but those were flushed out a couple of months ago. So
I will probably wait until it's integrated into the static build.
Yeah, that's no problem. And I don't mind you bugging me about it. It is on my list of things.
Yeah, I was feeling bad. I knew you had a lot going on, so I was kind of hesitant to reach out. But so yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm really glad that we hadn't just pushed something through and released something before, because it would have been a bigger mess now than just pulling it back out and making the build conditional. So in that sense, cool. But I will be quite happy when this is finally done, and as soon as it lands and goes into a release, I'm probably going to take a month vacation and just do nothing, because just to celebrate that this thing actually went in after years. So yeah.
Okay, in terms of next 10 surveys complete, we got more than 4,000 responses, so that's really good. The team is going through the results, and so we should be documenting that in the not too distant future. Darshan, single executable applications, any update on that?
No updates at the moment.
Okay. And I think that takes us to the list of strategic initiatives that we have people here for. At this point, any other topics before we close out? Okay, if not, thanks for everybody's time, and we'll see you in GitHub.